Hey everybody, in this video we'll go over graphing a parabola of the form x equals a times y minus k squared plus h, or y equals a times x minus h plus k. We have talked about these types before, where y equals a times x minus h squared plus k. This is in vertex form of a parabola. Now, let's take a look at this one first. I have videos on this as well where our vertex is at hk. So if we go back to this one, or our given equation, we have y equals 2 times x plus 3 squared minus 5. So our vertex hk is at negative 3 and negative 5. Because remember, this h is always attached to the x. So we have negative 3 and negative 5 as our vertex. Now how are we going to find other points? Well, we're just going to go ahead and say, well, if I plug in negative 3 for x, I'll get negative 5 for y. So I plug in points into this function. If I were to plug in negative 2 for x, that would be 2 times negative 2 plus 3 squared minus 5 equals y. So when x is negative 2, we're going to end up getting negative 3 for y. And I go ahead and plot the point negative 2, negative 3. I can plug in negative 4, and I'll also get negative 3. I can plug in negative 1 for x, and I will get a positive 3. And now, because parabolas have this axis of symmetry, I also know that if I plug in negative 5 for x, I'll get 3 out for y. So this right here is this parabola. Okay. Now the axis of symmetry happens right along this vertex, like this. In this case, we have a vertical axis of symmetry at x equals negative 3. Okay. Now let's do one where we have x equals a times y minus k squared plus h. Now here's one where we have x equals 3 times y minus 3 squared plus 4. And the vertex is going to be at hk again. But now we have this form right here. So our vertex is at 4, because there's our h, and then 3, because that's our k value right there. But when we have x equals y squared, we end up with a parabola that either opens up left or right. Which means that instead of choosing values for x and finding out what y is, because we have x equals something in terms of y, we're actually going to choose values for y. If I plug in 3 for y, I will get 4 for x. Now, let's go ahead and plug in 2 for y. So that means x, let's write it over here, x is going to equal 3 times 2 minus 3 squared plus 4. We end up getting 7. Now the point is not 2, 7, the point is 7, 2. So my vertex is at 4, 3, and I have a point at 7 and 2. Now if I were to plug in 4 for y, I'll get 7, so I have another point at 7 and 4. If I were to plug in 1 for y, I get 16 for x. So that means way, way, way out here, 16, 1 will have a point, but I can go ahead and fill in my parabola like this. So there's an example of a parabola opening up to the right. Now, if this was a -3, okay, now our parabola is going to flop and it's going to open up to the left-hand side. Okay, but we would do it the exact same way for this top.